Welcome into Radio Row. I'm Matt Verder. I'm here with a Pro Football Hall of Famer, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks for many years, Steve Largent. Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thank you.
No problem. I want to talk to you first and foremost about why you're down here. Maybe if you could explain to the fans watching what your purpose is here at Radio Row this week, what you're trying to champion.
Right. Well, a group called HeGetsUs.com is a group that actually has a commercial, a 30-second spot and a 60-second spot during the Super Bowl, which I've never heard of before, to try to introduce people to the real Jesus, and not a fake or phony, but the real Jesus, and introduce them and just introduce them to his confounding love and forgiveness that he offers to all of us. And so I think it's just kind of a cool thing to do, and I'm behind it. So that's what I'm doing here.
Was your faith a big part of your career? I know a lot of football players, a lot of athletes in general, really rely on religion,
Yep.
get them through tough times. There's a lot of pressure.
Yep.
Was that something that you relied on? Did you find that later in life?
Yeah, no, actually, as I was a sophomore in high school, but I was a child of a divorce and then an alcoholic stepfather, and just a lot of bad things going on in my life. And when I was introduced to a guy named Scott Manley, who was a young life leader in my high school, and he really befriended me and introduced me to Jesus, just like these commercials do. And so that's when my life really took a turn for the better.
That's great. I wanted to ask you about that career that you had. I mean,
Yeah.
you joined an expansion team.
Right.
That is not an easy road, especially
Right.
back then when in the 70s the NFL was not exactly friendly to expansion teams.
Yeah.
What was it like being on the ground floor with the Seahawks where you looked at it and went, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. We all are getting to know each other here. Take me through the early years in Seattle and what that was like growing up.
Well, it was interesting because I was actually drafted in the 4th round by the Houston Oilers. Yep. Was cut after 6 weeks of training camp by Bum Phillips, and got a second chance because Jerry Rome, who was my coach in college, had become the quarterback and receivers coach in Seattle. And he's the guy that really went to bat for me and said, hey, let's give Steve Largent a try up here. And so when I got cut by the Oilers, they picked me up. They traded an 8th round draft choice for me, and I was in Seattle. And the great thing about that was that Jerry had put our entire passing game from the University of Tulsa into the Seahawks game plan. And so I knew I knew the routes, I knew the numbers, I knew where to line up, where to go, where not to go on every play. And that was very, very helpful to me to make the team. Because you have just a couple of weeks to make a team on the expansion team because their players are coming and going all the time. But I made the team there, and then Jim Zorn and I hooked up, and he was a great quarterback, scrambler, a guy that just could make a lot of things happen on his own. And that was kind of the way I played football too. And so we worked hard in the off season and really became a dynamic duo, so to speak. And it was a lot of fun.
What was it like for you making it in the NFL? Because you didn't have Harold Carmichael's size.
Right.
You're not 6'8". You don't have that blinding speed. I mean, what
Yeah.
was it for you that made you so successful to not only be good for a short period of time, but then good really for the better part of, in fact, even more than a decade?
Yeah, well, I think the thing that one was I had a great work ethic. I knew that I wasn't the biggest guy, I wasn't the fastest guy, that I needed to make everything else work for me. My routes had to be in the right position at the right time. My work with the quarterback, I had to have the ball in a certain position and not in another position. And so, that's why it was so helpful for me to have quarterbacks who like to work. And I had Jim Zorn for the first half of my career and Dave Craig for the last half of my career. And both those guys were willing to stay out on the field after practice and work on particular routes. And so that really helped all of us to be better than we could have been.
When you look back, what was maybe a memorable moment or your most memorable moment in your career? Was it personal? Was it team-oriented? Was it a combination of the two?
It was actually, I will tell you this, and I'm laughing when I say this, it was actually a tackle and not a catch.
against Mike Harden.
Mike Harden, exactly. How'd you know that?
I love history. I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah. Well, it's on YouTube also, Largent versus Harden. But he hit me with a cheap shot when we played him in Denver and knocked me out. I was out of the game from that point on. And when we played him in Seattle, we played Denver home and home because we were in the AFC West then. And so when we played him there, Dave Craig threw a pass through the end zone on the opposite side that I ran the route. He threw to the other receiver, and Mike Harden intercepted it and started running it out of the end zone and came back and actually cut towards where I was coming from, that other side of the end zone. Cut right back to me, and I just hit him as hard as I possibly legally could with a legal tackle. And that's my favorite play in my NFL career, and not a catch.
Are there maybe one or two receivers that you look at now that play today that you say, you know what, that guy kind of reminds me of me? That guy maybe isn't 6'7", doesn't run a 4.3, but that guy is my style of receiver.
Well, you know, the guy that that's funny you should ask that to me, but the guy that I think of is Cooper Kupp.
Really? Okay.
And he happens to be from Washington State. And went to school, I think, at Eastern Washington, something like that. And so I watch his game from year to year, and he's an incredible player. He's a great blocker. He hustles. So I can see why he's been so successful. But, I mean, that's the guy I think of. But the other guys in the league are too fast and too strong and too tall for me.
You played 14 seasons.
Yep.
You had a stretch where between 9 seasons you had 8,000-yard seasons. You were on an all-decades 80 team. I'm curious, today's rules are very liberal for the passing game. Well, not so much when you played. Going over the middle was a hazardous thing, right? You could get hit up high. Also, now those you just talked about, guys are a little bigger, a little faster.
Yeah.
Do you think you would have more success or less success in today's game based on those kind of conflicting factors?
Well, I think that I would love to play in today's passing game because they do throw the ball so much.
Yeah.
Now a guy will have 85 catches or whatever, and his yards per catch are like 6. I think my yards per catch for 14 years was 14 yards per catch. So it's definitely a different league. But I love the passing game. That's what I love to watch football for, is watching the receivers work, watching the quarterback work to get the ball to a receiver. And I think that's the fun part of the game is the passing game, not the running game.
What was your favorite route to run when you played? I asked that because you were known for being such a precise route runner.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I always like running a 12-yard post route, and because it was kind of dangerous, but if you hit it, it was big. For 20 yards, 25 yards. But I also like playing inside. We played in the slot position, and we had a route that we would run at 12 yards, and we'd either break in or break out, and it was your choice whether you could, however the defensive back was playing you could break in or break out or even curl, and that gave me a lot of options, and so that was kind of a fun route to have too.
I wanted to ask you, 1983, you guys make the playoffs for the first time.
Yep.
And you went and you played Miami in the divisional round, and Miami was heavily favored. Marino's a rookie in the old Orange Bowl. You guys went and you won that game. Did you believe you were going to win going into the game? And if you didn't, at what point were you like, we might win this game. We might actually come in here and beat them.
Yeah, we had won the wild card game, which put us into the next game, which was we were playing the team with the best record in the AFC. And so I don't think anybody gave us much of a chance, but we thought we could win. We were kind of crazy, and we're in the playoffs for the first time and said, what the heck? And we go down to Miami, and I hadn't caught a pass the entire game, and it's in the fourth quarter. And Dave Craig threw me an in route, and we gained about 25 yards. We had about 2 minutes left to go in the game, too, by the way. And the next play, he threw me a post corner and hit me, and I took it down to the 2-yard line. And Kurt Warner popped it over the end zone for a touchdown the next play, and we ended up winning the game. And so that's probably the best memory I have from my days as a Seahawk. But that was a pretty remarkable comeback.
Yeah. Super Bowl 57. You've got two pretty remarkable teams in this
Yes.
game: the Chiefs, the Eagles,
Yes.
Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, all of it. Who do you have in the game and why?
Well, I don't know, but I would tell you my guess is the Philadelphia Eagles, only because I feel like their offensive line is the better offensive line and their defensive line is the better defensive line. And when I played, it was all about, your offensive and defensive line. It didn't matter who your quarterback was, who your receivers
That's
were.
true.
It was how your offensive line and defensive line played. And I still feel like the Philadelphia Eagles have built their team that way. And so I think they'll be formidable for the Chiefs to overcome. And I think that they'll end up winning.
If you played with Patrick Mahomes, 2,000 yards in a season on the table?
Oh, I think so for sure. I mean, he's a great quarterback, and he's a difference maker too. So I'm not counting out that the Chiefs could win the game for sure. But he's a real difference maker. He's a hustler. He's a leader on the field. You can tell that. So I love watching him play.
Last question. I want to kind of go full circle with this. You mentioned Jerry Rome was your college coach
Yes.
in Tulsa.
Right.
Ended up in Seattle. You get cut by Houston. If Jerry Rome is not in Seattle, do you think you have your NFL career?
I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think there's another coach that gave me the chance that Jerry did to go to Seattle. So yeah, I definitely think that that would have been my last play was playing with the Oilers.
Well, I think most NFL fans, certainly Seattle fans, are glad it worked out for you.
Me too.
Hey, Steve, thanks so much.
Yeah,
really
thank you.
appreciate it. Best of luck this week. Steve Largent, Hall of Famer with the Seattle Seahawks here on Radio Row.